All right, hello and welcome to our new edition of Discover Love Academy. I am Jacqueline, the founder and creator, and I am so honored and privileged as we bring another amazing live class to you. It has been such a joy to see who stepped forward and chose to be a part of this incredible academy. So now I get to introduce to you Dr. LeslieBeth Wish, and she has an amazing talk that we're going to share together. I would love for you now to introduce yourself, darling. Tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about you and why you chose to be a part of our Discover Love Academy.
Thank you. And truly, I'm always so grateful for being part of these kinds of help sessions for people, because we all need help. And sometimes you don't know who to listen to. So the fact that you vet people. And so I feel very with great gratitude to be part of this.
Thank you.
Everyone calls me LB, like the initials for Ladybug. My first name is LeslieBeth, all one name. My mother was from the South, and somehow people just messed up that name, so I am happy to be called LB. By education, I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist, and I've been doing this kind of work for decades. Even when I was a little girl, I knew that I wanted to help people. I also knew that I was caring and intuitive, and I was raised by the most amazing person named Daisy, who lived in our house. My mom was physically ill, and she knew that she needed some help. And so this was not the kind of help that you saw in those movies like The Help. Daisy actually lived in the house, and she became my mother. And she taught me unbelievable lessons. I'll just pass on a few. The first one is always act with beauty. Be mindful of how you are communicating. You don't need to be unkind or ugly. That was the word Daisy always used. Don't be ugly. And secondly, don't volunteer to close a door. Take opportunities. You can always turn them down, but you can't redo them most of the time.
Oh my gosh, what a true statement.
So that's my personal background. And I got interested in helping women with their relationships because all my friends came to me with, should I go out with this guy? Should I go to bed with this guy? You know, do you like this guy? And, you know, it's not that I haven't made love mistakes. And I shouldn't even use that word because I don't look at them as mistakes, truly. Instead of subscribing to trial and error as a philosophy, I always, 99% of the time, it's trial and learn. Yeah, there have been things I wish I could like erase, but we've all had that. And anyone who says, do you have any love regrets? And someone says, absolutely not. You know they're lying to themselves.
Well said. And it's so true. Let's just be honest about it.
Yes. So I got interested in doing my specific work and helping women get emotionally brave and intuitive enough to make changes in their life, and especially when it comes to love choices, was that when I do research and when I decided to make my specialty helping women in particular, when something bothers me and I can't answer the question, then what I do is I do research. My mind is really oriented towards thinking scientifically. What explains the most? It's the classic scientific method. What explains the most? What can you predict from the theory? And can other people replicate your findings? So, very important. That's what science uses when they do tests, okay? So I wanted to know why so many of today's women are smart, educated, trained, professional, really successful at work, but not in love.
That's a big question. That's actually a huge dynamic. As a professional matchmaker, I have attracted such incredibly successful, talented, educated women that are like, hello, I'm great at everything else. What happened here? Yeah. So I get you.
Yes, and it bothered me. And I did not want to be one of those professionals who relies on their own personal experiences only, or their crazy family members, because we all have them, or on your clinical practice, because quite quite honestly, the statistics show that not that many people seek therapy. So I did 5 years of research. I did surveys, workshops, podcasts, and I didn't identify it as, do you have trouble with your love? Come talk to me. Because then I would only attract people who had love problems. I wanted it to be just, life lessons, some tips I've learned, made it really broad.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for 5 years. I have thousands of women and couples in my study. And then I was able to take a select group randomly chosen to do 5 years of follow-up. And so
Oh,
that is the basis of my current book, which is called Smart Relationships. And
I like that.
when you're trying to get a book published by a traditional publisher, there are things that you don't have control over.
Right.
So one of the things I learned from, let me back up for a second. When you're a good researcher,
Mm-hmm.
you should be learning an awful lot from your research participants, and
Yeah.
I did.
Good.
And one of the things that jumped out at me was when I was asked on a radio show, if you could give women one tip as to what would help them make smart love choices, I said, my research participants taught me that if they could trust their intuitive judgment, they would feel much less anxious. So that's why my current work is training your love intuition.
That's awesome. And I love that you really actually understand the work, but you walk your truth and you've done the research and you've done the knowledge testing and then you continued with it. That's the thing I absolutely love. I'm spiritually gifted and a lot of people ask me for my spiritual intuition,
Yes.
but I love when people can actually dig into their own. That's why I was so excited when you signed up to participate. I know our listeners right now are going, oh my goodness, I need to get better, because for a lot of people, they always say, my picker is broken. I really
Yes, that's
had
right.
no idea how to listen to this.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a good match, and I hope it's a good match for your listeners.
Yes, I appreciate that. So what is intuition really? What is it?
Well, that's a good question. So let me answer the question first. Is it real? I mean, is it sort of woo, 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 and only people who aren't grounded do it? That's one of the criticisms of people who do anything that doesn't sound, like everyday behaviors. So intuition is real. There's a lot of research out there by respected neuroscientists and professors, and
Mm-hmm.
they discovered there's a book called The Eureka Factor. It's by John Cunios and Mark Beeman. And they wanted to know if they put electrodes to people's heads and asked them a series of selected, very vetted questions, what would happen when they saw various areas in the brain light up showing activity? And
Oh,
what if they could match areas in the brain that lighted up when a person was telling a story about when they listened and experienced their intuition or when they didn't experience intuitive signals. And what they found is that on the right side of your head, just above and slightly behind your ear, is an area of the brain that seems to be like the relay station for receiving your intuitive signals that are accurate. So I thought that was really important.
that is
So
very important. Yeah.
fascinating. And there is work on it. In fact, Yale University has an entire laboratory run by Professor John Bargh, who is a psychologist, who is doing research in intuition, cognition, decision making. I mean, yes, this has some solid grounding.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. I love the science behind it. We kind of, what's your inner gut? What's your thoughts? But to actually know there is genuine science behind it,
Yes.
it helps you grow on that and strengthen on it and understand it. So why is it important?
Because your intuition is always at work, even if you aren't aware of it. It is one of the things that helps you make potentially smart decisions and smart answers for yourself. So the question is, how come people can feel their intuition and it's wrong? Because
Oh,
that is,
that's like, I'm hearing my listeners at the moment going, oh my gosh, hello, I
yeah.
thought it was right. How is it? So yes.
That was what I wanted to know, because they're always talking about women's intuition being strong, and you know what? That's not true for every woman. Men can have strong intuition too.
Right.
But in general, women's intuition, that is a catchphrase that also is grounded in science, because in the female brain, very slight differences. We're talking slight differences. They have larger areas in the brain for interpersonal connectivity. And that makes sense because of the mother-child bond. The mother
Right.
needs to be more attuned to what a child is telling them, sending them signals.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that that
Very
was
tiny.
actually in the brain that you could see that. We see it, we
Yes.
hear it, we're trained, we're told that women are supposed to be this way. But what does that actually mean? And knowing that now you're saying there's actually a fragment that is a different size for the women.
And that doesn't mean every woman has it. In fact, some scientists say that the differences from woman to woman or man to man is bigger than the differences between male and female. But it's just a slight difference in most women's brains. It's more area in the brain for that. So your intuitive reactions are very important because you're reading signals in yourself and
Mhm.
others, and often you don't know it. So take charge. That's one of the things that I coach women to do, is how to take charge of your intuition so you can recognize two important things. Number one, that it's happening, and
Right?
number two, that it's correct.
Oh, well, that's huge. How do you know the difference? How do you know how to vary between that?
That's right. And so what I found is that women might have intuitive signals or observations and feelings that their intuition is strong. But unfortunately, it can also be wrong. So the big question is, what gets in the way of intuition not being accurate? And
Ooh, that's
that
a big
is,
question. That's like the $1 million question that we're
yeah,
always asking. So, wow.
exactly. And that's what I focused on. So
Mhm.
it's nothing I can answer in one quick sentence, but I'm going to give it a try, okay?
Go
Because
ahead.
it's
I'm
several
excited.
steps. What happens is we rely on our emotional comfort zones when we make decisions in love. We feel comfortable with choosing people who create for us similar love patterns. And often these love patterns are not healthy for us, but because they feel emotionally comfortable, we continue to repeat them. And the reason we repeat them, that's too many sentences, they're colons. Okay,
You're okay.
semicolons. And the reason we repeat them is we've learned these patterns from what we learned about love, women, trust, anger, sharing, being apart, men, the world, from our family of origin.
Wow. And that's true in so many ways, the environment. And as you say, your mother was ill and somebody else was raising you, so you were getting additional outside information too. So that makes a big impact.
Think of your family this way, whoever raised you, it doesn't matter who it is, but think of the environment in which you were raised. Think of it as a country, an island that has to survive. And every family country has to have rules of survival. So the first things that you need to do so that you can get rid of the clutter that keeps you trapped in your emotional roles and patterns that may not be healthy for you is to tease out what those family country rules are. So for example, think about some of those, not comedies, but like serious movies that often have someone whose father went to Yale, grandfather went to Yale, and now there's pressure on this person to go to Yale. And then you find out that he can't handle it or she can't handle it. That's one of those rules of the country that makes the
Uh,
family feel this is how we survive. That's an obvious one, but we all grew up with rules to keep the family survival mode to keep that country family alive. And so some of those lessons that you hear, and they kind of sometimes float in the air and you absorb them so they're not written on the refrigerator. So some of those might be, we all put our shoes on and our pants on one foot at a time. So who do you think you are going to college? Okay? That's one of the messages.
right.
And what that's saying to you is Please don't make us feel inadequate. Don't leave us in the emotional dust. Don't leave home without us. And so what happens to a lot of the women who are in my study, they found that when they either got smart and got educated and successful, they felt guilty that they were sort of, leaving those family rules and guidelines. And so what they did very unconsciously was choose someone who fit more into their family.
Sorry, one second.
You okay?
Oh, I'm fighting this crazy cold.
Take your time, please.
All right, much better.
Sure?
Sorry about that pause for my
No, don't worry. I've
a little tickled.
I've got allergies. I understand. No,
So
as long as
continue
you're
with your
okay.
beautiful story. Yes, I'm great. Thank you.
So it's so important to know those family rules, because what happens if you learn that certain choices of partners fit too well into your family, and you don't want to have that fit in your family because it hasn't
Right.
been healthy for you,
Mm-hmm.
we often feel, without our knowing it, anxiety and guilt about breaking those rules.
Oh, that's so true. And so that has an even deeper level on breaking rules, breaking expectation, breaking what we were thinking, but we're often planning what we already experienced.
Yes, and imagine if your intuition tells you, go with this person because they fit into your family.
Right.
So that's where that concept of emotional bravery comes from. To really trust your intuition, you've got to get incredibly emotionally brave to look at your family, to build the understanding of what the rules are of this country you were born into, and to develop your bravery to break those rules if you have to.
I love
So
your phrase of emotional bravery. That's a pretty, ooh, that like hit me, and I can feel it in my chest and in my heart. Emotional bravery and giving yourself what sounds so much as that permission to truly choose what your intuition is telling you, not just what you're expected to do.
and to test whether that intuition is based on dysfunctional patterns that you don't want to be a part of any longer. So too often our intuitive signals tell us more of the same. That's your comfort zone. That feels good to you. And you learn over and over and over again, it's not so good for you. And you have to get brave to find out what your emotional rules and roles are in the family.
Oh,
So
wow.
we talked about rules. Now let's talk about emotional roles, because that's what's often going to lead you to make wise or unwise choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I want your viewers and listeners to think about this. Pretend that friendly aliens abducted you, just plucked you right
Yeah.
out of your family, okay? And these are nice aliens, but nonetheless, they took you far away. And now you're able, from far away from Earth, look down on your family and see what happened when they realized you weren't there.
Hmm.
So what was happening? Did they even miss you? Because sometimes if you're the forgotten child, or as I've often seen in my research, the child who was created to fix the marriage,
Yeah.
you could, and it didn't work,
Right.
So would they rather not have you? Were you the so-called problem child, the maverick, the one who went against the rules, the different one? And they go, well, that problem's gone. We don't have that one anymore. Or, as in my family case, if I had been abducted by aliens, my family would have turned cold and not very kind, because I was the calm, warm one in the family.
Right.
So then you get to see what your emotional family role is. And I'm not saying that your emotional family role is good or bad. Just find out what it is. And then secondly, find if you are always leading with that role. Now, using myself as the example, there's nothing wrong with being a calm, warm person. I mean, there just isn't. However, one of the things I had to learn was to pay attention to choosing partners who only wanted me to be that. So the direction of care was always going towards them, and there weren't too much coming towards me. But
Oh, that's powerful. Wow.
yeah.
I like listening to you going, bing, bing, bing. I can tell a bunch of our listeners are going, oh my gosh, yes, I was duplicating those patterns from what I knew and what people expected.
And so when my intuition kicked in to choose someone for a while until I put the picture together, I was always leading unconsciously with
Right.
people who wanted me to recreate my emotional family role because it felt comfortable.
Yeah. It's what you knew.
So this is how you trust or not trust your intuition. You've got to do your emotional family homework. What is my emotional role? What are the rules that I learned? Can I tolerate being emotionally uncomfortable by dating a different pattern in my relationship? I don't like to use the word type. We are not types. I don't like it when someone says they're not my type. I should change the type. So for example, if I can use a prop, just give me a
Yeah.
second. One of the things that jumped out at me from my research was I asked women in my research to rate the question, I
Mhm.
like lots of excitement in my relationship, on a scale of 1 to 10. And the women said, yes, I like lots of excitement. I like someone to be leader of the pack. I want someone to be sexually a tiger. Can you see my
Mhm.
tiger?
I see
Okay, a
your,
tiger in the bedroom. They wanted excitement. Now, there is nothing wrong with having a tiger in the bedroom, okay? That's fun. Okay, and there is nothing wrong with choosing a partner who is a leader. The
right.
problem arises when you discover that this person who is a leader only wants you to take the opposite role and be too much, another prop coming up, too much of a lamb.
Oh, wow. That is powerful. Oh, and I love visual aids. So good
Okay?
job.
Okay? So, what I want your listeners and viewers to pay attention to is exaggerate your relationship. That's one of the ways you get to see it better. So, if you're with someone who's the leader of the pack, leader of the jungle, king of the jungle, ask yourself, am I allowed and do I speak up in this relationship so that the we can be co-equal? Okay, that we
Right.
both have leadership skills, and no one is a leader all the time because in relationships someone might get ill, someone might be having a rough time, they might lose their
Right.
jobs, they might get ill, so that maybe you have to switch as to who's the leader and who isn't at certain times. I always like the concept of a healthy partner is your wing person. You share common skills and you help each other out in areas where you're not as strong and where he or she might be strong. So what you want to look for are the extremes, okay? That's what you should be paying attention to. Because what the women in my study did when they chose a leader, they confused thinking that they thought this was a sense of authority and success. And believe me, there's nothing wrong with being successful and having a sense of authority.
Right.
Then they discovered often that what they didn't pick up about this person was this leader of the pack not only had a sense of authority over his or her career and life, but they wanted to take authority over you.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, if that's what they naturally do, they do it in every other level.
Not every leader does, but you certainly want to look for
Uh,
that. And
Yeah.
and so this was the mistake that women often made. They said, I'm not dating that type of person anymore. They paid they
I
paid
like how
too.
you use the word type. That's a new concept. We always say, you know, it's so important to not be thinking that way. So I really like
Yes.
you're saying it. I think it's really, really important.
I'm glad you said that because I steer people away from thinking of types. I want them to think of the patterns in their relationship.
Yes.
So what these women often do, they do a love flip where they say to themselves, no more leaders of the pack. They're going to hurt me. They're going to abuse me. They're going to control me. I want a really nice guy, a really, really nice guy, sweet, And one of the catchphrases that women use, I can say anything to him. I can tell him anything. And once again, there is nothing wrong with feeling that you can tell your partner anything. You should be
Right.
able to. But once again, exaggerate. What if your partner could only be a little lamb? What
Exactly.
if your partner can't make decisions, is indecisive, can't step up to the plate when the going gets tough and you might be ill, or you've lost your job, or one of your loved ones or parents or siblings is ill and you need that person to kind of take over more of the decision making,
Mhm.
and you find that they can't do it. So that's why I recommend you pay attention to your patterns, not types.
That's really powerful. Patterns versus types. I feel like people, they're so locked into the type, they don't realize that it's separate to their pattern. And that, if you have somebody who is always sweet and soft and you can talk to about everything, it is true that often I hear from clients that there's a complaint later that they didn't, step into their own, that they feel like they're actually carrying that partner. It's great to have a buddy, but yet you really want that strength also, and to be able to both carry the roles. And I love your wingman concept and wing woman. It's like we're there to help each other out to be our best selves, but also to have our strengths and have our weaknesses, but find what that rhythm is. So that's huge.
Well, you used a very key word. I love that you did that. Um, I always say it's good to care for and about your partner. Caring is okay, but carrying them is not.
Exactly. And that's actually, with all the years of work that I have done as a matchmaker, when I ask people about their past relationships, it's often that they felt they were carrying that person.
Yes,
They
yes.
were holding them up. They were trying to get them through the tough times that lasted far longer than necessary. And so it's one of those things where really listening to that intuition and hearing, how do you want someone to show up in your life, and how are you going to show
Right.
up in their life as adults? That's very powerful.
And now I hope your listeners and viewers get the concept of your intuition can get clogged, literally clogged, okay? If what you're bringing to it are patterns and rules and emotional roles that you're not aware of. Because once you clear that away, and most importantly, you're willing to be anxious and uncomfortable for a while when you make
Mhm.
changes. Very, very important. If you don't get that emotional bravery, you're going to make the same pattern mistakes over and over again.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually, again, I love your emotional bravery comment. I love, love, love that. I hope everybody's writing that in bold, underline, starred, exclamation mark, because we have to step up for ourselves. We have to hold our essence so you can attract the right person. But if you're being too meek or you're being too dominating, you're not going to send the right intuition message to be received or to be sent to the other person.
And then you don't know if it's accurate. Because
Right.
if you're activating your old patterns, the rules of your family country, the rules of your rigid emotional role, then you'll just continue in those same patterns. And and
Exactly.
it's not easy. It just
No.
isn't easy. I remember in my own family, my mama was 18 when she got married. My dad was much older. He was already established as a physician. My
Hmm.
mother basically ran away from home. She
Yeah.
wanted nothing to do with them. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? You can't run away from home unless you know what it's about and what you need to do to get out of it. So my mother raised me believing that my role in life was to get married. She dropped out of college in her sophomore year because she met my dad,
Yeah.
and that was what she went to college for, was to find a husband. Okay,
Yeah. Get the
so
missus degree.
yeah, absolutely. So when it came time for me to go back to college for my junior year, you would think that most parents would say, my daughter's in her junior year now at such college, she's studying this. My mother said to me, I'm so disappointed that you're
Oh,
going on, because that was what she thought was
right. That's
not right. And secondly, I was not a social butterfly. I was a very serious student. And
mm-hmm.
my mother believed, because that was the belief of the day, and it's still prevalent in families, that smart girls aren't chosen by men. And so that was the chatter in my head. That
Right?
was the chatter.
That's powerful. And that's still happening. As successful as women are, there's a lot of intimidation. And
Yes.
they say they want a strong, smart, very intelligent woman, but then when they get that delivered, they don't really know what to do because they've been taught not to. And so it's a changing in thought processing. Luckily, my men love a smart lady, but on a lot of the outside dating world, they haven't experienced it in a positive way.
That's correct. And so I had this, I think you have to pay attention to what's the chatter you hear from your family. So my parents expected me to get married young, like my mother did. They loved the boy I was dating. He was older and already in professional school. And I would go to bed at night saying to myself, wow, he's tall, dark, and handsome, comes from a wealthy family, my parents like him, he's going to be go into the family business and la, 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 la. And I went to bed at night feeling zero for this person.
Oh,
And I
true, that
thought,
happens.
what was wrong with me? What was wrong with me? And until I figured out that this person was someone who wanted me to be just the little woman and be the cook and bottle washer and stay home. And what really, one of the things that made me see the light was we were going out to visit a lot of his family and friends. And he said, you know, it's very important that you look extra pretty for me. And let's go pick out some clothes for you to wear.
Hmm.
And I said, I've got plenty of clothes in my closet. Who's paying for this? I don't, He said, we'll get you whatever you want because it's very important that you make a statement to my family and friends. And so once again, that little bee was in my bonnet that said, if I exaggerate that behavior, this is a very key exercise. Remember, I did that with the lion and the lamb.
Mhm.
Exaggerate. And that taught me, oh my goodness, there's a strong possibility that the only emotional role I'm going to have in this relationship and potential marriage is that I'm just going to be the little lady. I'm just
Yep.
going to get dressed and show off and cook and clean, and nothing wrong with being pretty, nothing wrong with cleaning, nothing wrong with staying home. It's only when you're only allowed in the relationship to be only that.
Yes. It sounds like you were able to see quickly that by stretching it, which I love your concept with that, is that you would be put in a little box while you stopped and looked and you're like, whoa, I am way bigger than this box.
Yes,
But he
absolutely.
had already probably had the same thing in his upbringing. You go find yourself a pretty little lady and you
Right.
get her all set up and know that you can provide for her, make sure she looks pretty. She does all these things. Like they've already got all these jobs for you
That's right.
and met the family. And that is so powerfully aware for you to go. And I love the whole stretching it. It feels like dough over the pie pan that you're like, whoa, I got too much
Yes.
dough. I'm going to make two pies. Well, you know what? I'm going to make a pie for me. What's my life? What are my dreams versus just how do I give you your pie that keeps in your shell that you want when you're so much bigger than that?
I love that. You're right. This dough, whatever your relationship pattern is, it isn't good for you. That can stretch over the course of your entire life
Right.
if you don't switch pies. Very, very
Exactly. Get
important.
a better tasting one.
Right. So, and I remember when I finally did meet my husband, I remember feeling very anxious. And I thought, what is this? I said, let's sit down. You're feeling anxious. It has something to do with dating this man and loving him and he loving you back. What is making me anxious? So this is what I said to myself. And this again, I've mentioned this before in our talking, about 20 minutes
Yes.
ago, but here's something else to ask yourself. Does this person fit in my family, and is that a healthy thing or not? Does this person not fit in my family, and is that a healthy thing or not? Well, my husband did not fit in my family, and that was a good thing, okay?
Right, exactly. I
Very,
love that you have those questions. I'm like, okay, everybody listening, write these down and
yes.
really ask yourself truthfully these questions.
Because if I had chosen someone like I had before who fit in my family, he too would have been like the relationship pattern between my mother and father. My mama was a little lady. She wasn't supposed to do anything else. My dad was the big hoo-ha person, and there wasn't any room to break those family country rules. So when I introduced my husband-to-be to the family, boy, did my dad get anxious. He was being shown up education-wise, financially, successfully, on just about every level. And oh my goodness. And once I felt comfortable rocking the family tree, breaking those country family rules,
Ah,
my anxiety went right down, and I knew that I had chosen wisely, and I got out of my family.
mm-hmm. You broke the patterns, and you also weren't just living your mom's dream. That's where I feel like so often, many talks I've done with other experts of whether it's Disneyland that put those dreams in your head or, your childhood thoughts. I mean, honestly, in all the years as a matchmaker, women tell me all the time that they planned the wedding before they met the person. And I'm always like, why? Because you're making a party for one, just hoping you've got the right, I call it paper doll theory, where you're just cutting a person into the next chapter instead of actually knowing the person and connecting with the person and owning that relationship with that person and choosing your person that makes you the best version of you and vice versa to them. I love how you were able to see that it wasn't immediate family saying, this is what I want. It was, hold on, I feel this. And then you notice how your own anxiety and your thought processing shifted. So on that note, how do you know to listen to your head or your heart?
Well, this is where you can get into trouble. Ideally, you want your head and heart to be sending the same message. And once again, remember, your family of origin and your experience in your family can hijack that alignment of the same message from your head and heart to give you the wrong yes message or the wrong no message. So once again, you've got to go back and ask yourself, what was my emotional role in my family? Do that exercise with being plucked out of your family by Martians.
Right.
Secondly, ask yourself, what if I exaggerate my partner's behavior? What do I see when I exaggerate that? I remember this boyfriend who I was dating, who my family assumed I was going to marry. He would hold every door open for me. He'd go through all kinds of weird gyrations to make sure he could pull my chair out for me when I sat down in a restaurant. He'd bob up and down every time I left the table. Not that these aren't nice, gestures, but this was getting comic after a while.
Yes.
And it just looked ridiculous. So when I stretched that, all I saw was someone, once again, who seemed to be respectful, but respect only if I was the little lady who couldn't even get up from the table on her own.
Right. And I love that you take that perspective, where I had one lady one time, she went on a date with one of my gentlemen, and she was so thrown off, and she goes, he didn't pull out my chair and he didn't hang out my coat. I don't think I want to go on a second date. And I said, you need to teach him how to treat you. She really wanted that. So once they realized that that was important, they continued dating and were married a year later. But it was very easy for that assumption both ways. So I love that you were able to, or are able to right now, explain how different it impacted you. And he was doing it more out of reaction. Like sounds like he was doing it because that's just what he was taught to do, not necessarily that he was watching what you wanted. He wasn't listening and responding to how you want to be treated.
Correct. And so that's why the concept of exaggerating, I love your image of just stretch that dough and it goes over a lifetime of someone who may not be the best pie for you, so very important. So now we've learned that step. And then I want you to pay attention to your actual patterns. Remember that I brought up the extremes of this is the issue of who has control and say.
Yes.
So you want to watch out that you're not at the extremes. You really do want to be with a buddy, someone who you can look left or right, and there's your wing person.
Yeah, they're by your side, not in front of you, not behind you, they're next to you.
Not over you, not under you.
Love that. I just had a lady add that to her profile. She goes, I want somebody who stands beside me, not in front of me, not behind me, not dominating, that we stand beside each other. And I'm like, that's what everybody wants, and they need to acknowledge and embrace that, because it's mutual on male and female side.
Oh, men have to go through these steps too. Absolutely. And it's harder for men sometimes because what gets in the way sometimes, and it doesn't happen to all men, so I'm not trying to say it's in every man, but men often, for a long time, and sometimes just for a brief time, are really blindsided by physical attractiveness, um, a great, hot night in bed, and they have to be able to pull back from that, because most of us know or have experienced that when you date someone who is, drop dead gorgeous, or, belongs on the cover of Men's Health, that only holds you for so long.
Correct. And that's the big thing. I always say to people that, go, oh, they're a little overweight, or I don't like their style. I'm like, but are they sweet? Are they wonderful? Do they fit all the qualities? Because you know what? People can lose weight, but they can't gain a personality. If they're already not very nice or dry, they're not going to change.
That's right.
Regardless. So what do you say are the steps you can take to really build on the accuracy of your intuition?
So the first thing you have to do is find out how you receive your intuitive signals. Are they in your tummy? Most of the time they are, because there's a very complex neural, immunological, and hormonal connection between your brain and your cells in your tummy. It's almost like some people have called your tummy your second brain. But
Yeah.
when you think of all those neural connections that are made, it's just not a one little highway. It goes throughout your whole body. So your intuitive signals might come to you in another form. It might be something you hear. It could be something like your fingers begin to tingle. It could be anything. My intuitive signals come right here. They feel as though there is a thump from the outside of me on my chest. It's very obvious. It's not even a tingle. It's like a thump.
Oh, yes.
So know your intuitive signals. Secondly, know your emotional family role. You get those Martians to abduct you. Pay attention.
Right. Know your family's emotional role. That is big. And that is so important, to really just be honest with it and let it be what it is, so you can actually dig in deeper for it.
The next step, know your family's rules that kept the family country going. What did they teach you or show you in their own relationships about trusting someone? What did they teach you about closeness and distance? What did they teach you about who's in charge, who's got more say and less say?
Ooh, those are big. Yeah. And a lot of people say, my mother wasn't affectionate, so I was either starving for affection, or I didn't know how to give and receive affection. Yes. So that's huge.
So when you go on a date, you have an instant tool that you can use right in front of you or under the table. I want your viewers to make a plus sign.
Okay.
Okay? Now, this up and down, this vertical, is measuring that sense of feeling safe. Because most of us in love want to feel safe and warm. So what does that mean? Operationalize that. So recognize your pattern, not only from your family of origin and what they taught you about how to feel safe, but what you do in your patterns. So let's look at what this means to be safe. Some people feel safe when they have lots of control. Some people feel safe when they give up too much control and they're down here. That goes back to our lion and lamb, okay? Ideally, you want to be somewhere in the middle. You want to have some flexibility, because if you are always in control and you're the top dog, after a while, just as you mentioned earlier in this interview, you're going to feel exhausted and disappointed that your partner is not your wing person.
Exactly. Absolutely. And it is exhausting when you don't feel like you're on the right track. You're always kind of disengaged, or you're trying to catch up, or you're trying to slow down for them. That makes a big difference.
And you're carrying the weight of the world, like that statue of Atlas carrying the globe on his back. So pay attention to what makes you feel safe. truly what makes you feel safe is a partner who has abilities that complement your own and doesn't run the show or give up the show. You don't run the show or give up the show. So that's how you really feel safe.
Wow, that's huge. And that's so important because I feel like people sometimes get locked into, oh, I'm the more submissive, I'm the more dominant, or I have all these people expecting this from me, but it doesn't feel right. So just to hear you say that is huge. You know, hey, you don't have to give up the show, but you do need to have the show sometimes. Like, we all need our middle of the stage audience time, and we also need to know when we need to go backstage. So I love that.
Right. And you want flexibility. You know, too much of television shows and ads right now are showing men as doofuses. You know, I don't get
True.
why that's so, you know, you don't want that. You know, you might think you do. You might think you've been hurt so many times that now you're taking charge. You're going to be up here. And boy, you're going to end up very often finding a partner who can't, as they say, belly up to the bar,
Yeah.
backs away from making decisions, is indecisive, and that doesn't help a relationship. So be very careful of how you choose what makes you feel safe. Now, let's look at what makes you feel warm. So this measures your warmth. At one end is 2 peas in a pod, where you are just, you know, cuddly and together all the time.
Right.
Remember that concept of exaggerate? Imagine if this is the only way you are. My God, after a while, you're going to feel like you're suffocating. You know, oh,
Exactly.
please, can I go out with my girlfriends or
Yeah.
a night out, or can't you go out? You know, please, can I go to my own room and do what I want and watch my TV show? Do we all,
Exactly.
you know, like this? The other extreme of warm is you're too cool, because you've learned from your family country of origin that closeness is scary. You don't like that. You have too much closeness and too much trust. It ends up in squabbles, and that's what you saw in your family. And maybe your nature is that, you know, you don't have a lot of needs for tremendous, you know, attachments, and that's okay. But what you don't want is to be, once again, at the extremes. Again, it's that flexibility of being able
Right.
to move up and down and left and right. So
Mm.
when you're with your partner, you can either sit there under the table with your little fingers going up and down, or
Right.
what I strongly recommend is go into the ladies' room or men's room if you have men listening,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
ask yourself, where do I put myself where I feel in the safe and warm plus sign? Is this a pattern I'm getting into? Am I always choosing someone that I'm in charge of? Or am I always choosing someone who takes charge of me? Am I choosing someone who wants me, you know, at their side every single minute? I once had a boyfriend who every single down minute of our relationship, he was rubbing my neck, my toes, my back. Well, in the beginning, that was like, oh, isn't this sweet? But now,
Right.
but now exaggerate that. After a while, I wanted to say, get off of me. Don't you
Right.
have anything else in your own life to do? I'm not a
Yeah.
doll, you know, like, so
Exactly. I
exaggerate.
love that, but that's so true, is to stop. And I love how you're saying that, you know, where do you fit? Where is that line? And to find that sense of balance, because we do tend to, I mean, in the beginning of dating, people immediately kind of go, oh, they're not going to do this, but maybe they will, or I need that. And so it's really important what you're bringing
Yes.
out. So clear.
So these are the main signs to look at. And again, you want to pay attention to your comfort zone and be suspicious of it. Am I comfortable because this is good for me? Or am I feeling comfortable with this person because it's repeating dysfunctional comfort patterns and rules from my family of origin? So you
Right.
really have to make that distinction. It's not easy. It takes, once again, a lot of honesty, soul searching, emotional bravery, because you might find, like I did, that in order to make a good choice of love partner, I had to go against my family.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't in a negative. It wasn't in to hurt anyone. It was,
No.
what life do you want? What is your
Yes.
voice? what is the pattern you want to look at and own, and what joy it brings to you. And this is so important because people are repeating the patterns. Or how many times do people later say, gosh, I actually kind of married my mom, or I married my dad, and you just kind of kept that cycle going, but yet it really wasn't what you wanted, and it didn't bring you the joy and the growth that you were looking for.
Yes. And one last question that you can ask yourself, and this is so important. Do I like who and how I am in this relationship? Do I feel exhausted? Do I feel cheated, robbed, not loved, not cared for? Do I feel that I'm doing too much, that everything's on my shoulders? Or do you feel that you don't have any choices, any say, that all major decisions were made already and you really didn't have any input? So what don't I like and what do I like? Do I like me in this relationship?
I think that's the $1,000,000 question, and people are forgetting that one. And I can tell when couples are in a good place because they radiate, they look good together, there's a fit that comes with them. But if they're not happy, or you come home and you're tired, or you leave the date, you're kind of like still confused as to what's happening,
Right.
the chances are it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and you don't want to do things that cloud your judgment either. And one of the biggest mistakes that women make today to cloud their judgment is they volunteer, without knowing it, to have their brain hijacked by oxytocin and all the sexual hormones that flood your brain when you have sex. So the worst thing you can do is have sex too soon, or to have sex just as a hookup, because I'm not talking about ethics or morals or religion. I'm talking about making yourself in charge of your life, taking responsibility. And once you hop into bed and have hot sex because some guy is cute or handsome, or he's a catch, or you're lonely, or you're afraid, boy, you've just volunteered to have your brain hijacked by a flood of emotions. And one of the major emotions that happens with sex is the hormone of oxytocin, which is that attachment hormone that helps mother and child bond. Well, what do you really want to do? End up activating that, flooding your brain with that feeling, and then suddenly wanting to see a person again only because it felt good, but you don't know anything about them? That's not a very wise thing to do.
Exactly. And I get asked that question a lot, is when should you have sex? And I've always been a really big believer is you need to know where it's going, if you're just looking for casual or you're looking for a relationship, because those expectations change once you're sexually intimate and people think differently. And we had another expert talking about how different your brain functions when having sex. So you're making different decisions, and really a quality connection, it's going to only get better if you wait a little bit. So it's much better when you're actually choosing to make love versus just have a hookup. And it doesn't give you all those confusing signals. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Well, the way I help people think about this is take the word sex out of the relationship sentence, okay? Instead of saying, should I have sex with this person? Ask yourself, should I get drunk with this person? Should we do some get really rip-roaring drunk so I can't remember anything?
Right.
And not even have fun, just get really dizzy and sick and pass out and not know what happened. Do you want to do that? Would you make decisions based on a brain that's flooded with alcohol or drugs? And the answer is 99% no. Well,
right.
That's what sex does. It just floods your brain. It messes up with your sense of self-worth. It messes up your sense of self-control. And most importantly, what many, many women do, and men do too, is don't use sex as medicine to calm your loneliness and your need for physical contact and calming, because what you will be doing is putting a Band-Aid on a giant problem.
Exactly. No, and that is the big thing, is that now you've passed a job on to the new person you're having sex with, and they're supposed to feel all these things when they went into it with different intentions because you guys weren't at the level of communication.
Right.
So again, the same thing you were talking about earlier in this call, and I can just feel people squirming in their seats as they're listening to this, because everybody wants to have an excuse for, well, yeah, but we just connected right away, so it was okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, where is it now? And I love that you said that. I've never heard that thought of, okay, well, let's stop. Do you want to get rip roaring drunk with this person and not have, control over your faculties, and you're going to be making decisions that you're going to feel in the morning, really think about that. It's like, ooh, yeah, no. And obviously that's not the impression you want. So why don't we hold ourselves in a higher esteem for that and allow the other person to rise up too. And as you said, I love your phrasing of clouding your judgment. When you're giving too much misfired information, you can't get better at hearing your intuition.
You can't. It clouds it. And I started our interview tonight with one of the statements I made, that be very wary of feeling too excited about being with someone.
Mm-hmm.
I always like visual images, woo, I'm really excited, this is, oh my God, he asked me out, he chose me, be careful of that, because that will very easily give you permission to have sex. Oh, I have feelings.
Right.
All right, I have feelings, and so it's okay. No, it is not okay. And again, it has nothing to do with morals or what women do and in charge of your body and all that kind of stuff. No, it has to do with making you in charge of you as a whole person who isn't using sex as medicine, who isn't using the excitement of someone to make you feel better. I'm got a date with this person. Going to get the brass ring and maybe even an engagement ring. Be very careful of that. Be suspicious, because you don't want to leave yourself always acting out of someone fulfilling a need.
Exactly. And I really, 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 really appreciate you bringing up that aspect, because people are doing this so much to fulfill a need. And the clients that I find that have the hardest time, making that connection, finding that relationship spot, are usually the people that really put jobs on the other person. They don't entertain me enough. They're not exciting enough. They're not risking enough. They're not attentive enough. When it's like, okay, but what are you bringing to the table? And if you showed up falsified and then you're waiting for them, or you put them at such an expectation level compared to all of your other relationships, there's a backfire there too. So those are so huge. I love this. And we're almost out of time. I want to make sure that, is there anything else you want to wrap up and share with our amazing group? Because this is so important for everyone to step back and really think, why am I making these choices? What really is my head and heart saying? What is that intuition? And am I having sex with somebody just because I'm lonely, I'm trying to be medicating a feeling? Or am I actually connecting intimately with this person, and we together are ready for this next step of our courtship?
Yes, and I want to leave your listeners and viewers with this tip about the whole dating process. Change your goal from finding the one, which there is absolutely no such thing as the one person in the entire universe. Good for you. That's ridiculous. I mean, you may as well just give up to find that one little person.
It can be very depressing if somebody's honed into just that. There are soul connections, but yes, there are lots of great people out there.
Yes. So change your dating goal from deciding whether this is the one person for you. Make your new dating goal testing whether you are reading that person accurately and your own take on that person accurately. And go out on second and third dates and use them as a way to test whether your predictive skills are accurate using the techniques we just talked about, like exaggerating, knowing your family rules and your emotional roles. Very important. Mm-hmm. Secondly, try not to date. Hang out. Remember, most of married life and most of long-term relationship life is spent doing just ordinary things, whether it's going grocery shopping, right, or sitting watching a show or something. It's ordinary. What do you think, that all those movie stars are every single minute are doing something really exciting? No, you're not. So why don't you make your dating life resemble what real life might be? So hang out. Hang out with his friends, your friends. Watch how they interact with his own friends, your friends. What are the things that other people are saying to you, like, oh, I can't believe that, Tom finally is dating. Pay attention to what you're hearing. Exactly. Watch it. Run errands together, and I'm really serious. Go on undates. Watch what happens when you go to the grocery store together, and be you. Don't pretty up. Don't put your best foot forward. Put every feet and every little toe forward. Be you. Because when you have quirks, and we all have quirks, don't you want to see how this person handles them? So if you're someone who, like in that movie When Harry Met Sally, is a fussy food orderer, be that way. Watch your date to see how they respond to it. Do they get aggravated, roll their eyes, get embarrassed, try to take control? Because that will give you a good inside peek of what it is like to be you with this person.
Exactly. And that is powerful. And that's the part that I'm always saying to people is, if you don't like you enough to be you, then why would they want to be with you even once you reveal yourself weeks down the road? If you need to hide who you are, or you can't own your truth, and you can't walk in fully authentic, then you need to take some time to work on you before you're dating, because that's not fair to your person you're meeting. But while you're meeting them, be real. And most people say that they find they have a much better connection when they're just like, hey, I just showed up and I'm me. And still be a quality person to date, of course, but be who you're going to be in 6 weeks and in 6 months.
And for the rest of your life, be you. So don't hide those quirks. People have asked me, what is the best outfit to wear on a date? Well, a long time ago, there was research about which women at single bars get the most visits and looks and conversations with men. It is not the woman who is, as my grandmother used to say, showing all her business, no, and has the, satin dress and big earrings and too much eye makeup, Let your makeup that you're wearing, if you do wear makeup, be an enhancement. Don't look too different when your makeup is off from what you look like when your makeup is on.
Right.
Don't wear something provocative. You are not a man trap. You do not need to do that. What is the outfit that men responded to the most? Jeans and a form-fitting t-shirt.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That's what they said was the most.
I like it.
Ordinary life. So and it's not the prettiest girl who gets hit on, because men are a little self-conscious. They wonder, would she choose me? So be you. Yes, be your best self, but don't be a fake self.
Exactly. And love who you are so they can love you in return. Well, LB, this has been amazing. You have brought so much information. I can just feel our incredible audience just going, hold on, what did she say? I got to replay that. I got to figure this out. And that's what this is about. I'm here to bring so many great experts forward so we can wake everybody up and have these great conversations and stretch things out. Yes. Really be honest with yourself. You've really shined a very bright light with true tools to move forward on understanding your love intuition. Thank you so, so much. I can't wait till next quarter.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I hope I can convey this with the feelings of the intensity I'm having right now in working with you, because you get it. You get it more than almost any other person, probably more than any person who I've ever been interviewed by. I love that you bring depth and you just get it.
Thank you. I really have been honored in my many years as a matchmaker and doing spiritual work with people, and just knowing that I believe so strongly the right people are brought forward when I'm in my authentic truth. And so when I set up this program, I sent the message to the universe of what I wanted. And my intuition really was very high and strong in knowing who I wanted to bring in to support the people that are showing up for love. I feel like so often people just keep thinking it's, mass quantity of people and all these steps to go, when really it's a deeper level. There's personal work to do, but it's the work of where we're going. And the information you have shared is exactly what I want my incredible people to listen to. So I thank you for that. And I love how deeply passionate you are, and you followed up with genuine facts. It is amazing. So thank you for receiving this opportunity and for giving unto us. So we look forward to next time with you. Very, 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 very excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to what you come up with next, because it's so true.
This has been a very rich experience, and I appreciate your wisdom very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye now.